Have you ever reached that true zero point? The moment when the noise stops, the phone stops ringing, and the world goes silent? That dark, lonely chamber where the human ego finally collapses and you realize there is nothing left to grasp. We spend our lives building external castles of success, relationships, and identity, only for one crisis, a loss, a betrayal, a sudden illness to tear them all down. It is in that utter state of absolute despair that the truest journey begins. Because when all external anchors fail, when there is truly no one left to cling to, the only place left to turn is inward. This isn't just about finding God or Buddha. It's about finding the unconditional, indestructible refuge that has resided within your own heart all along. The great unmasking, the illusion of external stability. We live most of our lives constructing a protective shell around our vulnerability. We rely on external sankharas, conditioned phenomena, a career, a marriage, wealth, social status, to define our worth and provide a sense of safety. These external anchors are inherently fragile, built upon the shifting sands of anicca, impermanence. Yet, we cling to them desperately. The darkest hour is the moment the universe pulls the rug out from under us. It might be the sudden loss of a loved one, the diagnosis of a terminal illness, or the collapse of a lifelong dream. The defining characteristic of this moment is the profound realization, I cannot fix this, and no one else can save me from this pain. All the usual coping mechanisms, distraction, blame, frantic activity fail. This is the 0 point. From the Buddhist perspective, this collapse is a painful but necessary grace. The ego, which thrives on control and external validation, is forced to surrender. The facade of the separate, stable self breaks down. This moment reveals the deep truth that the Buddha articulated. Suffering, dukkha, comes from clinging to what is fundamentally impermanent. As long as we believe our well-being resides outside, we are destined for disappointment. The gift of the abyss, finding true solitude. Before we find the light within, we must first confront the void. When we are stripped bare, no titles, no roles, just pure, unadorned existence, we experience a solitude that is terrifying yet honest. This forced isolation, or despair, serves a spiritual purpose. It eliminates all possible external targets for our hope and fear. We often mistake samsara, the cycle of suffering, for reality. When the cycle breaks down violently, we are jolted awake. The Dhammapada teaches us the inherent danger of relying on others or external factors. Look upon the world as a bubble. Look upon it as a mirage. The king of death does not see the person who thus looks upon the world. Dhammapada, verse 170, adapted for emotional context. This verse whispers to us, the things we cling to are merely bubbles, and when they burst, we suffer. But if we recognize their ephemeral nature from the start, we escape the grip of the king of death, suffering, and despair. The abyss of despair is, paradoxically, the first place where we begin to see the world as it truly is. a constantly shifting mirage. The turning inward, the necessity of retreat. When the outside world offers no succor, the energy of searching turns 180 degrees. The mind, exhausted from seeking solutions, sinks into stillness. This is the crucial turning point, the moment we stop outsourcing our spiritual authority and begin the necessary journey inward, the journey to the Citta, mind, heart. This turning inward is not an escape from the world, but a retreat to the inner sanctuary, allowing us to find the unconditioned. It is only in this radical emptiness, where the ego is quieted by fear and exhaustion, that we can hear the subtle, persistent voice of our own awakened nature. The deep lesson of despair is that it forces us to find the one refuge that can never be taken away, the Dharma itself, which is ultimately realized within our own experience. Despair is the fierce, uncompromising teacher that dismantles the false self so the true path to peace can be revealed. The journey with the Buddha does not begin on a mountaintop of success, but often in the valley of tears, when the exhausted soul finally cries out, "Where do I turn now?" The answer is immediate and undeniable. Turn to the self. 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 Turn to the self, beyond the storm, locating the indestructible center. In the darkness of despair, when the exterior world offers only chaos, the energy we conserved by stopping the frantic search now illuminates the interior landscape. This turning inward is the profound moment of meeting the Citta, the true heart-mind. Before the crisis, our Citta was obscured, cluttered with the debris of expectations, attachments, and transient feelings. The despair acts as a purifying fire, burning away the superficial layers. When we meet the Citta for the first time in its naked state, we discover a crucial truth. The suffering is in the clinging to the story of the despair, not in the essence of the mind itself. The Citta, in its deepest nature, is described in many Buddhist traditions as luminous, pure, and originally awakened. It is not something we have to create, but something we must simply uncover. The feeling of being utterly alone in our darkest hour is often the most vital precursor to this discovery. When we realize the external supports were illusions, we are forced to recognize the one thing that has never left and never will: the capacity of our own consciousness to observe, to be aware, and to be fundamentally whole. The Buddha's invitation, come and see, Ehipassiko. The quality of the Dharma is often described by the term Ehipassiko, meaning come and see. This is an invitation, not a dogma. When we are at the 0 point, stripped of all belief systems and certainties, the Buddha's invitation becomes an urgent, practical instruction. Look at your own mind. Do not trust what you are told. Trust what you experience. In that moment of deep quietude and pain, we observe the mind without judgment. We see the thoughts of fear, grief, and abandonment arise, but we also realize that the consciousness observing those thoughts is separate from the thoughts themselves. That observing awareness, that space is the true refuge. This truth is beautifully captured in a profound teaching often attributed to the Buddha. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with a pure mind one speaks or acts, happiness follows him like a never-departing shadow. Dhammapada, verse 1, paraphrased for context. This verse is a direct pointer to the power of the Citta. When we meet the Buddha in our darkest hour, we are not meeting a deity on a pedestal. We are meeting the potential for pure mind within ourselves. We realize that the conditions for happiness or suffering are generated from within, not imposed from without. Our external world may be broken, but our internal anchor remains untouched. The transformation of fear into faith, Citta. Faith, Citta. When we were relying on external structures, fear was constant, the fear of loss, failure, or abandonment. Despair is the moment that all those fears are realized, and paradoxically, the energy of fear exhausts itself. When we turn inward and discover the clarity of the Citta, fear begins to transform into tries, faith or confident trust. This faith is not blind belief in an external savior. It is a profound trust in the inherent capacity of our own nature to handle life's challenges. It is the realization that the problem is not the external circumstance, but the internal resistance to the reality of impermanence. The Citta, being spacious and unconditioned, can hold the totality of the pain without being destroyed by it. This transformation is the moment of genuine healing. We learn to sit with our despair as a temporary guest, rather than fighting it as a life sentence. The practice of turning inward during crisis turns the despair from a collapse into a catalyst. It is the fierce, gentle grace that clears the path, revealing the Buddha, the awakened one, is the innate wisdom dwelling right here, right now, in the deepest recess of our heart. The furnace of practice, using suffering as fuel. When we are at the bottom, the sheer weight of dukkha can paralyze us. Yet, in the Buddhist path, suffering is not a punitive state to be avoided, but a sacred material to be used. As the Buddha said, he teaches only two things: suffering and the end of suffering. The deepest despair becomes the most potent fuel for transformation because it strips away all distractions, leaving us with raw, undeniable reality. The key practice at this stage is to apply sati, mindfulness, directly to the pain. We stop running from the pain and instead turn to face it with gentle curiosity. When the wave of despair hits, we observe, where is this sadness located in my body? What is the texture of this fear? We observe the emotion not as my life sentence, but as a temporary, conditioned sensation, a cloud passing through the vast sky of the mind. By naming and observing the pain without judgment, we create the necessary space between the observer and the observed, thus confirming the purity of the Citta discovered in the last stage. This mindful witnessing allows us to embody the teaching of the Dhammapada. Hard is the mind to subdue, swift and flighty. It rushes wherever it lists. The taming of the mind is good. A tamed mind brings happiness. Dhammapada, verse 35. The despair, having tamed the mind by force of circumstance, now allows us to take conscious control of the taming process through observation. From personal agony to universal karuna, compassion. One of the most profound shifts that occurs at the 0 point is the expansion of our focus beyond the personal ego. When our pain is absolute, we recognize the universality of suffering. We realize that the intense, unbearable grief we feel is the same grief felt by millions across time and space. Our personal agony becomes a mirror reflecting the suffering of all beings. This recognition naturally gives rise to karuna, compassion. Karuna is the wish for all beings to be free from suffering. The realization is this: my pain is not unique, and therefore my healing must not be purely selfish. We transform our isolated despair into an engine for connection. A powerful method for this transformation is the practice of tonglen, taking and sending, often practiced in Tibetan traditions. While sitting with your own sharp pain, for example, loss, fear, you symbolically breathe in the suffering of all those who share that same agony. The taking, acknowledging the shared burden. Then you breathe out relief, peace, and hope. The sending. This practice fundamentally transforms the energy of despair from self-absorption into altruism. You are using the very thing that broke you, your suffering, to connect and heal the world. And in doing so, you heal yourself. The true meaning of refuge, the Sangha within. When the ego collapsed, we discovered the Buddha, the inner wisdom, and the Dharma, the path of truth. The final jewel of refuge is the Sangha, community. In the darkest hour, the Sangha may seem absent externally. But the deepest Sangha is the community of awakened qualities within our own mind. The inner forces of patience, khanti effort, virya, and wisdom, panya. When we are alone and broken, these inner qualities must rise to the occasion. We rely on the patience to simply breathe through the storm, the effort to keep the mind open, and the wisdom to remember the impermanence of the pain. The journey of meeting the Buddha in despair is thus a full circle. It begins with the dismantling of the external self, leading to the discovery of the unshakable inner refuge, and culminates in the fierce, revolutionary compassion that uses our deepest wound as the very source of strength and connection to all living things. The light we found in the abyss is now the lamp we carry to illuminate the path for others. Acceptance, the final act of surrender. The darkest hour is over, and the realization of the indestructible Citta has been made. The final step in this transformation is acceptance, often related to upekkha, equanimity. Acceptance is not resignation. It is a profound, active agreement to meet life exactly as it presents itself, without demanding it be different. It means accepting the brokenness of the external world, the limitations of the human body, and the inevitability of suffering, all while resting in the untouched peace of the inner sanctuary. In the grip of despair, we fought reality. In the light of the inner Buddha, we embrace reality. This acceptance allows us to heal the final fracture, the resistance between what is and what should be. The peace we find is not dependent on circumstances improving, but on the inner realization that nothing outside can truly diminish the brilliance of the awakened mind. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of wise attention, yoniso manasikara, seeing things as they truly are. Acceptance is the fruit of this practice. When we accept the truth of dukkha, we are finally free from the exhausting fight against the flow of existence. The middle way, Majjhima Patipada, in the mundane. After the intense spiritual awakening catalyzed by despair, the challenge shifts from discovery to sustainability. How do we maintain the clarity of the Citta and the refuge we found when we return to the mundane world of bills, traffic, and imperfect relationships? This is where the wisdom of the middle way, Majjhima Patipada, shines. The middle way is the path of balance, avoiding the extremes of indulgence and self-mortification. After despair, the extremes can manifest as 1. Spiritual bypass, pretending everything is perfect, ignoring real issues, or 2. Spiritual nihilism, believing nothing matters, retreating entirely. The middle way teaches us to use the awakened perspective gained in the abyss to engage skillfully with the world. We commit to the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path in our daily life. Right view, seeing impermanence, right livelihood, working ethically, and right mindfulness, staying present. We treat external challenges not as threats to our safety, but as training grounds for compassion and patience. We are in the world, but no longer of the world, because our true anchor is internal. The unending refuge, the Sangha we carry. The final teaching of this journey is the enduring nature of the three jewels of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. When we were at our lowest, we met the Buddha within our pure awareness. We embraced the Dharma by accepting the law of impermanence, and now the Sangha becomes the intentional community of spiritual friends and practices that support this inner realization. This Sangha includes the external Sangha. Seek out people and communities who hold the same values and remind you of your inherent purity. The internal Sangha. Regularly cultivate the inner virtues, Khanti, Virya, Panya, found in the crisis. The essence of the journey is recognizing that the greatest crisis of life is a profound spiritual invitation. When the external world shatters, it is not the end. It is the moment the true inner spiritual life begins. When we have exhausted all options and have nothing left to cling to, we are forced to finally turn and find the eternal, unshakable refuge, our own heart-mind, which is the seat of the awakened one. The meeting with the Buddha happens not in a temple far away, but in the deepest, quietest corner of our most desperate hour. We discovered that the collapse of our external world is not a curse, but a profound spiritual cue. When we have no one left to cling to, we are finally invited to turn inward and meet the Buddha, the awakened awareness residing in our own pure Citta. This inner journey transforms despair from an ending into a radical beginning, revealing the unshakable refuge of mindfulness, compassion, and acceptance. Now, carry this realization with you. No external storm can extinguish the light you found in the darkness. Trust the stillness within. The greatest comfort is knowing that when everything else fails, your own heart remains your ultimate, eternal home.